Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting race in our continuing coverage of the Crosskeys tournament. Today we have Oneup versus Walter IV. Joining me in the booth here is amazing Amphros.
It's good to be with you today. It looks like we're already kicking off, so we'll skip the pleasantries, get right to the action. We have divergent starting routes, and Walther immediately feels just excellent about his, as there were bombs in the chest in Link's house, which pretty much just puts you off to a fast start. Finding your first couple bombs is generally your first challenge in Crosskeys. Oneup has a bit of an angle to work with, as he has found the capacity fairy. If he can get 100 rupees, he can buy 15 bombs, but that could take him some time.
Don't worry, I'll get everything going. It's like our restream is being a little bit finicky today, but don't worry, we are going to have it underway here in a second. There we go.
Speaking of bombs, we have located the bomb shop at Hyrule Castle. That's another place you can spend 100 rupees for bombs. A little less lucrative, as you only get 10 instead of 15. But it also comes with some crystal information, and we know Desert Palace and Turtle Rock are our red crystals. Desert's mostly a pretty good red crystal. The boss is very easy. You only need the fire source and the big key. Very short dungeon. You need a lot of stuff for the Turtle Rock boss. The big key, fire rod, ice rod, red cane. Some pretty big weaponry, a hammer or sword too generally. So that's going to require a little bit of extra work from our runners to make happen.
It looks like we found that big key to Ice Palace, which in Crosskeys tends to be pretty useful. I find that location tends to have more useful items than not, especially because it's not a required big key to defeat the dungeon. So I always feel a little bit more secure when I find it. Oh, we found Ganon's Tower on Oneup side as Walter finds a Hyrule Castle entrance.
The interesting thing about the ice big key, it's not practically required to beat the dungeon, but it is logically required. So as far as the placement algorithm's concerned, you need that big key as much as the thieves one. Just the practical experience of playing this game will have a little bit of difference from that point. And yeah, Ganon's Tower early is always really interesting. You can't really do anything with it, but it instantly colors your perception of every item you find, because you're evaluating items in terms of what does this let me do in Ganon's Tower. It's just such a treasure trove. While the castle is a connector to CAC, that's actually a pretty big deal to locate early. CAC is not the shortest walk in the world from either of our spawn locations, and most players aren't super inclined to check those connectors early out of the castle, so this will be a nice shortcut for Walther.
And finds Pod right off the bat.
Pod, of course, is a chest right away. It also is a dungeon that you can quickly get more access to as you find items, and Pod is a very efficient place to farm even more bombs. So, at least on Walther's side, bomb count is just not going to be an issue early in the game. And speaking of the finds, Oneup has located Swamp Palace. Swamp's a dungeon that's usually more of a late game target. You need the flippers and the dam to even begin, and you're not going to make it very far without the small key and the hammer as well, with the hook shot being added to the list if you want to actually beat the place.
We have a vanilla well with our first sword at 4 minutes in.
And this is also just an immediate punishment for Oneup on the bombs, as he's going to be forced to double dip it. Oneup did get a big 300 there, so he can go back to that capacity fairy he found and buy 15 bombs whenever he wants. He's probably going to elect to just explore town, hope he finds a bomb shop, buy a 10-pack, but I've seen plenty of CACs without bombs for sale anywhere in town, so he's going to have to hope for a little fortune. He'll at least find Palace of Darkness, so we'll be able to get a couple.
Go ahead and grab a few.
Were those two different castle tower keys? Because that's kind of a big deal. Having both Castle Tower keys and a sword early, we are a lamp and finding Castle Tower from Aga 1 being in logic, which you got to get pretty suspicious. The Castle Tower keys are really the biggest thing that tend to clog you up on that point. Now, just because he's required logically, though, doesn't mean he'll be practically required. It's incredibly probable there'll be a connector to somewhere in the Dark World, and you'll be able to kern jump to East Dark World. And there's a really good chance if Aga's required, it's for that reason. Likewise, if Aga's required to get to the back of Escape, you can steal a key from the castle to make it to the back otherwise. And that's definitely a play with all these signs that I would be strongly considering. Of course, neither runner has the knowledge to do that consideration yet. Walther doesn't have the Castle Tower keys, and Oneup is still lacking the knowledge of where the castle is. And my co-commentator, Jinxie's having just a little bit of technical difficulties. But hopefully my dulcet tones will tide you guys over until she can get all her issues sorted.
Sorry about that. I don't think anybody can hear me yet.
Sorry, I got interrupted just a bit on my end, but looks like we're mostly just working through the same stuff. Walther found a path to East Death Mountain through the inside Spectacle Rock Cave. Another connector I feel a lot of players just don't like to take early, but it can be good to have that information about how you can navigate the world. Even if it looks like all he's learned is where another connector is with the back of Bumper Cave.
Yeah, I think that early information can be both good and bad at the same time. You know, if you're inclined to take connectors rather early on, you can find some good stuff, but you can also get yourself in like a horrible rabbit hole where you miss checking things.
I mean, really the biggest thing you're usually worried about with those early connectors, at least in my opinion, is you just go through a connector, you come out somewhere like GT, you get stuck in the Dark World, you can't really do anything in the Dark World, just choose how much time you want to spend bunny walking for no reward, and it adds up, you know?
It really does, especially in Crosskeys, where, you know, sometimes you have to rely heavily on the connectors, and other times they cost you the game.
Yeah, like, I think every player is often evaluating items in terms of which connectors is this obsolete. Because if you have everything, you know, flute, mitts, hammer, pearl, you only need a couple of connectors to do everything in the world. Everything else you can navigate to normally, but it can be quite a thing to find that. And up top, we have just located a pod small key. That's a very handy little find, as we've already located Palace of Darkness. Of course, I believe we actually saw on one upside there wasn't really anything behind only one pod key. But pod's the gift that keeps on giving. You just keep finding keys and you keep finding stuff.
Yeah, pod is a nice one to get into early because it's so item rich. Same with Ganon's Tower. Finding that in such an accessible location, it really puts the pressure on to find at least that hammer so you can go a little bit further into the dungeon.
And I would observe that what I was saying about stealing the key, Oneup is definitely considering that. So the downside of the routing Oneup is doing here is that he has hard orphaned Zelda's cell. But the upside is, whenever he feels comfortable making that dive all the way to the back of Escape, he could potentially be cutting out Naga Seed. And even if he has to go back for Zelda's cell, avoiding Aga 1 will be more than worth it.
I have to agree with you on that one. I think
I actually
anything that
wouldn't be surprised to see Oneup make that play soon. He might just be finishing CAC because he has a sword, so Dark Sewers is not going to be a challenge at all for a player at his level. And it's 4 items. It's actually really good density compared to what else is out there in the world.
so many connectors so early on, especially the ones that have multiple exits. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and of course, Oneup also is thinking about kind of the dilemma here of does he want to dive Castle right now, or does he want to dive some of these connectors, including, that one-way Spectacle Rock connector? We know that Spectacle Rock connector leads to Death Mountain that doesn't really have a whole lot on it, but Oneup doesn't know it, and he won't know it until he takes it, and it looks like that's what he's going to do.
Also, finding both of those Agate Tower keys so early, that is frightening.
Yeah, that's exactly why with Sank where it is, you really are just super tempted by the key steal idea because Aghanim, he's really easy, but he takes several minutes and he messes up all your Dark World saving quits as soon as you find the mirror, of course, from that point onward. So you really don't want to fight Aga. You lose just so much time.
Now when I was having my issues, did Oneup make it back to this bomb spot in the well?
I'm actually unsure. I immediately perceive it doesn't matter as Walther finds a juicy 10 arrow there. He probably did. Oneup has 10 arrows, right?
Yeah.
Oneup also just totally did that little block pushing puzzle wrong. He's going to have to double dip Mire Shed to get his second junk item. I don't know if you actually feel better. Actually, I do know. You feel worse when you see it's a junk item, because if it's a good item, you're like, well, at least I did have to come back in.
Yeah, I agree, because you're not going to just orphan it. You're going to go back and get it. So I think it being a junk item makes it 10 times worse. It's like Walter's going to be going through Hyrule Castle now that he has that sword.
Yeah, and he's going to be faced with a similar decision to Oneup. Oneup chose to steal the key from the boomerang room and then not dive the back, which I don't really know about that play. It seems kind of like a worst of both worlds decision, but it's what he went with. We'll see if Walther makes a different consideration here.
Yeah, I am very interested to see what is back there, if the key scum actually saves time or is, pays off. Like sometimes you get that big payoff with Desert when you steal the key. But with it being a 5/6, I wouldn't think that either runner is going to steal that key.
Yeah, Desert, known crystal. Like, the key steal for Desert isn't super appealing regardless, but it's one of those things you set up a lot of times but then don't actually do.
Yeah, it looks like Walter's saving that key as well. Going to do a key scum. So we are probably not going to find out what is back in Zelda's chest unless it's very important. In which case, that could hurt both of our runners.
Though Walther is committing to this play a little more fully, as he's going straight to the back as soon as he steals the key. I really agree if you're going to steal the key, and I think if there's a seed to steal the key, just from the knowledge you have as a runner, I obviously don't know the rewards, that this is the seed for it. But you just got to do it, because the worst thing is you steal the key, and then before you even follow up the key steal, you find the sewers key anyway, and you're like, Well, I orphaned Zelda's cell for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and here Walter can just do a reset and still have that key to check Zelda's chest should there be nothing back here of value.
That is a good point, though. Interestingly, if he was planning to do that, it might have made more sense to steal it from the map room just for the shorter walk. So I suspect Walter believes it's very likely he's going to find something that's going to make him not want to reset here.
Yeah, for sure.
Though, in half a heart, Walter might just be finding the game over screen.
Yeah, needs to be really careful here. It does find that door.
I have no idea if he got the chest or not, to be perfectly honest.
Ooh, there's flippers over at the chess game in the eastern area.
Yeah, flippers are an item that they're an item that really just annoys you to see early, because flippers without glove means you can't Houlihan room, and it puts Zora in logic. So it can just create a lot of agony for you, but Oneup does have the rather substantial advantage here that he already has 342 rupees. So getting the rest of the way to Zora money shouldn't be a terrible ordeal for him. And Walther, yeah, he took a death, it looked like, in the key rat room. That's really deep in sewers. That's like a full minute at least to that death. So that's a pretty bad feeling.
Yeah, he's definitely committing to it. At this point, I think you have to. One up finding the back of desert, choosing not to steal that key. There we find Spiral Cave over at the Flute 5 spot.
Honestly, this is a fantastic spot for Spiral Cave, because like Spiral Cave's always the agonizing decision. It's a one-way connector. It takes forever. It has an item, so you never know when you want to do it. But finding it here at a point where Oneup was going to save and quit out of almost any entrance anyway, there's just no downside to him to checking it and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And yeah, Oneup doubling back for that 20 rupee. He's definitely very aware of the risk of this being a Zora seed. Yeah, the dark sewers are just not being kind to Walther. Like, this isn't that easy with this little health. I think he's done the hardest part here. He should make it. He's just going to have to not do anything sloppy in this last room. Looks like he's playing it pretty safe, as can easily be justified.
For a bow.
Yeah, I 100% would not hard reset a bow. Yeah, there's another one, but it's not even a little hard for me to believe that this is an Aga 1 seed for the bow.
Yeah, I definitely think having that kind of permanent weapon. Oh, well, we do have the sword, so it's not. I don't know. Yeah.
It's also worth keeping in mind that Palace of Darkness is available. Of course, Walther doesn't know it. There is a bottle you can get, so he could just potion glitch in Palace of Darkness, but from Walther's perspective, that bow might be the only way. Now, a little bit of a spicier fact is we have Ganon's Tower and the GT Big Key, and now the bow. We are a fire source from 2 of those upstairs chests being in logic.
Wait, now Chad is saying that he just reset.
They were talking about the possibility of him resetting, because when he died at the key rat room the first time, he chose continue instead of save and continue, setting up for a hard reset if he didn't get anything behind the key, but he did choose to save and quit with the bow. He decided the bow was an item worth keeping, and it's really very easy to agree with that analysis.
Looks like we have a big key over on the Zora ledge.
Pretty sure it was a smaller key, but
Oh, maybe.
if it's the swamp small key, then it's a big key in a different way.
Okay, yes. Sorry about that.
Pod key. Now, if Walther's heading that way and he gets that pod key, you just got a bow. It's out of logic, but whatever. You got a bow. And then all you really need... Well, why wouldn't you go back to pod? You have 2 pod keys at that point, and you have a bow. You can do a lot of work there. The other intriguing thing to think about in Walther's position is he is at 453 rupees. He's very close to Zora money. He's not even heading towards Zora River until he finds just a little bit more. Which I guess from his perspective, he doesn't have flippers anyway. We know it's really likely his very next move gets him flippers, but of course, being the honorable man he is, Walther has no idea what's going on Oneup side. Even if he was dishonorable, there's stream delay, he wouldn't be able to know anyway.
It's like Oneup took a death in that dark room. Must not have been old man. Just because... I don't know. I'm very good with dark rooms, especially when I'm watching it and not playing it, where you can't kind of feel where you are.
I generally assume if someone actually dies in a dark room, it's probably the DM exit cave, because that cave is by far the most dangerous dark room. But I wasn't watching that dark room nearly closely enough to discern something like that. Oh, and a fun option Walther could go for, this is a plus EV game. You could just keep playing the chess game, hoping you get enough money for Zora. Your odds are pretty good, but obviously it's randoms. He's choosing not to do it, but I'd be really tempted in his situation to go for it.
There's somebody over there at the waterfall ferry.
And yeah, it's definitely an automatic eye roll for me. The second I see an entrance I'm basically guaranteed to have to return to in the Eastern Palace entrance. That is just a hike, basically no matter what items you find. And yeah, Oneup getting real friendly with that vulture and those sandmen, nearly taking a death in the desert, just kind of barely squeaks through and finds Eastern Palace. Now, Eastern is one of those sort of dilemma dungeons. You can get 4 items right away, one's out of logic, but it's whatever, you're just skipping the stupid lamp anyway, right? But you get the big key and it opens 1 more item. Big key and bow is 2 more items. You don't want to dive it until you have those things, but it's really easy for you to have to. It's just kind of a no-win decision.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, one of the biggest dungeon debates in Crosskeys. Do you or don't you dip Eastern Palace?
Yeah, Walther taking a death in Spiral Cave, but honestly that death cost him nothing because Walther had just gotten the chest. He'd already seen the other side of Spiral. That's no loss. On the other hand, that hook shot in Eastern Palace, in a chest that you can open more quickly with hook shot, thanks game, is a really big deal. I don't think we found anything yet that hook shot puts into logic. Well, actually, no, we have. You can get to Western Mountain from the connector to Eastern Mountain hook shot across the bridge. That's actually really likely what the seed wants you to do, but even that aside, hook shot's just a fantastic weapon, and it's a fantastic mobility tool. Definitely one of the premier items of the game.
I agree. I am always happy to find that hook shot.
And yeah, like the decision to go into Eastern, I usually am very hesitant to go in as a player, but I can really see Oneup wanting to go in there. It was in Agana's cave, and that's not that bad to return to if you have the flute, but if you don't, I mean, it's just a hike. And Usually you're more inclined to dive into more marginal dungeons when you find them in more remote overworld locations, just because you don't want to spend all the time to go back there later.
Yeah, definitely. I don't blame Oneup for going ahead and dipping in here with, given the location of where it is. But only the hookshot really to write home about.
Yeah, like, I definitely think with the knowledge Oneup has, it would be very likely to see him go back to Kakariko and take the connector back to the mountain. There's just so many entrances that Oneup is going to quickly get access to with that play. Whereas Walther on his end has made the play towards Zora River. He does not have Zora money still. It's kind of a bad feeling play. Just a lot of extra walking and not a whole lot to show for it.
Yeah, I think leaving that small key on the Zora ledge, though, means he's just going to go look for that money and then head right back there. I think if he was planning on isolating Zora for the remainder, he would have just went ahead and grabbed that key.
Now, Oneup briefly showed us one of the things that Hookshot puts into logic. He can make progress in Turtle Rock from the big chest, if he were so inclined. But he did not seem so inclined. He thought better of it. Killing the Pokey with Fighter's Sword is kind of obnoxious. I don't think Oneup would really have a problem doing it, but it can be a little slow, and it's just 2 chests anyway. And to clarify for chat, really obnoxious is killing it with only a normal bow with no silver arrows, killing it with only the red cane, killing it with only the hammer. Those things are really obnoxious. Fighter's Sword, just kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, I've had it where I've had to kill it with bombs to get progression, and I'm pretty sure it was the race you commentated for me last season of this tournament where that happened to me. It was horrible.
I'm really happy that my randomizer has done some excellent work helping you build some character.
It really has. It helped with like my anger and aggression, for sure.
And yeah, we're beginning to get a look at what's in the back of Pod. Oneup's not going to be able to open any of the key doors here. He can do the hammer jump to get 2 of the chests from the Dark Maze. I personally don't like doing it without either lamp or the big key, because you might have to hammer jump again and you have to just kind of struggle through the Dark Maze. But at a minimum, we get these chests. There wasn't anything in them, but you usually feel pretty good about the chests that are just normal in the back because they're logically only behind 4 pod keys. It's much easier for them to be early required items than the ones in the Dark Maze or the single rooms.
I was really concerned that Walter was only going to get that front chest and peace out. I'm really glad he's going to go get his hook shot.
I feel like if you're going to only partial clear Eastern, you get 2 chests and quit because this is a side room with the hook shot. You never head back this direction later.
Very true.
But I don't think a lot of players are inclined to do that sort of partial EP dip. Because like a lot of the time is invested in the first couple dead rooms anyway. Continue from here and just be sure is, I think, the standard decision, and it looks like what Walther's going for.
There's a glove in a dark room of Pod.
So yeah, I would not have gone to that glove, and like 40 minutes from now, I'd be sad. So good on Oneup.
Definitely making those choices that typically you don't see too much, making the big dips and the time commitments into the dungeons where there can't be a lot of items cleared out, doing some potion glitching shenanigans, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more with Diver Down and everything else if Samaria shows up. But I think making these plays is very... I don't want to say hit or miss, but I think it's very logical considering watching previous tournaments where a lot of runners might not have made that commitment. And luckily for him, both of those, like the Eastern dip and this pond dip, have paid off.
That glove is logically interesting. We still are missing 4 pod keys, and you need the lamp to put that in logic. Like, it wouldn't really be that surprising to find those things, but it's definitely just a factor that weighs on your mind. Like, you almost hard assume when you see a glove there that that's the logical mitts, and you're like, well, I'll use this for efficiency and just assume I'm not supposed to have it for a long time.
Yeah, that's when you fall into that logic black hole. It can be quite difficult to get out, especially if Walter grabs that glove and now has a bow and a glove out of logic. It's going to be really hard to kind of tie up those loose ends to figure out where we were supposed to go in the game.
Now, I don't think we have not seen the castle tower entrance yet, but if we find that and we find a lamp, that won't quite tie everything together, but it will certainly shorten the amount of rope we have to untie.
Yes, very fair, because Walter's about to pick up another pod key, so that would have been 2, so we're only missing 2 logically.
I mean, for the dark maze, you need all of them, so...
Oh, that's
even
right. I was thinking it was
2...
in the other dark room. Never mind. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Another spicy thing to keep in mind, Oneup is prudently checking the Western Mountain here, but the other thing that's... Well, that's a big deal. Honestly, was pretty convinced Oneup was just winning this early game, but that's not true at all right now. Walther has a pretty clear lead. That Pearl is going to troll Oneup something fierce. Like, he has Zora money, but he's just, it's a single, it's so far out of the way, he already got the pod key off the ledge. He's going to explore basically everything reasonably nice he can before going for that, and it's going to be just, he's going to be sad when he sees that there. But yeah, I was going to point out a smaller thing than the Pearl is that this hookshot also lets us go through back a bumper cave, and that's not really an unappealing option.
Yeah, our connectors have proved to be pretty useful so far in this early game.
So Oneup took a death in the dark cave. I don't know if he already had the old man in tow. For his sake, I hope he did. Oh no, that wasn't a dark cave, it was the dark maze. I see darkness, I see the mountain, I make assumptions, and they're not always right. But yeah, Castle Tower being on Western Mountain, that really makes you think, doesn't it? So yeah, like, I fully expect Lamp is coming real soon. And honestly, it's not unlikely at all. What the seed wants you to do is beat Aga 1 for West or East Dark World access. And assuming we can find any connector to Dark World Main, which that Bumper Cave connector could be very appealing, I would expect to see some real work to get around our old buddy Aghanim here. We're about to kind of complete our picture of this mountain and Oneup side, while Walther is going to be faced with that same decision of what do you do in terms of the back, and is he going to locate his glove? We don't think this glove is going to be logically important particularly soon, but it's just, you get a lot of routing efficiency being able to check under the rocks all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. Orphaning spots like over in My words will come. It's all right. Like over in different areas where you have the rock locations, like the shopping mall and Ice Rock Cave, that can prove to be a bit challenging and also detrimental to the race.
Well, there's Hookshot Cave, which is both a useful connector and 4 more items for us, so that definitely is looking pretty appealing.
So far, Hookshot Cave, not very exciting.
Yeah, but it's only halfway done. We have a lot more opportunities for this cave to disappoint us. Well, one more opportunity for it to disappoint us. So, yeah, that means that, pragmatically speaking, you do not have to beat Aga 1 to reach East Dark World. As that glove's really important, because you kern jump, that gets you to the potion shop area in the Dark World, and you can use your glove to pick up a rock and walk south. And by kern jump, I mean swim, because you have flippers. I'm sorry.
Wow. Lots of pretty good connectors up on that mountain.
And I would point out, this is heavy punishment to Oneup for not having the Moon Pearl. While Walther does not get his glove, and Jake Hopper's right, you can just take the swim portal and take the long way, which, given where Walther took that debt... Oh, no, he does have the glove. We just haven't marked it quite yet. So, yeah. Walther's gonna make his play toward the Western Mountain here. He's going to find his half magic and his Hookshot Cave and his way to the Dark World, and I expect him to just press forward into the Dark World. So just given the high probability that the Dark World is the way onward here, I think the main thing Oneup is hoping for is that some of just the extra stuff that it's going to be really tempting for Walther to leave behind as he pushes forward in the seed has sort of a gotcha item. Because, like, right now, we're just getting a lot of bunny walk stuff. Like, there's a connector to Thieves Town, and you're checking another connector in Village of Outcast. It's really likely we just get a lot of connectors looping you around the Dark World on Oneup side, and none of them really do anything to help him advance this game state. The bunny cannot open the Thieves Town entrance, as the bunny cannot grab things. A Super Bunny can open it, but getting Super Bunny state on the overworld mostly only happens in multi-world, because you do Super Bunny when you get an item sent to you from another game. Yeah, Walther going back in here tells me he did not reach the second chest in Castle Tower. That's unfortunate, but Looks like he's going right back for it. I think we know it's nothing important from Oneup side, but it's something you don't want to orphan, especially because in Walther's mind, probably correctly, he never plans to come back here. Well, Oneup has found Paradox Cave, another really lucrative cave he can't do anything in without his Moon Pearl.
Yeah,
if he
having
had a
that
Master
mirror
Sword,
would be so nice too.
yeah. If he had a Master Sword in the mirror, he could do some stuff as a Super Bunny, I think. But it's just not going to work out for him. Oh man, don't you love a one-way connector spitting you out at Mimic Cave? Because, yeah, like, at this point, really the question on Oneup side is when is he going to choose to go get that Pearl? Because I honestly feel almost any decision he makes that isn't going to the Pearl is probably just going to cost him far more time than any value he uncovers. He could also choose to actually play out his key steal for the bow. That would be a positive, but I don't know that it would really advance Oneup's game state significantly. Looks like Magic Bat is sitting in the Sanctuary. I don't know that we'd seen that yet. I don't believe we've seen the Ganon drop, have we?
No. Because neither runner fake flippered. I mean, did the hooligan.
Okay, Ganon's just right here. So the question is, what is in the pyramid? It's not Uncle, it's not the well, it's not Ganon, it's not the bat. It's not Lumberjack. Is it the thief?
Is that our useless fairy? I missed a lot of our drops because I was having technical issues early on. This is actually really good for Oneup making the Zora play.
Yeah, Oneup is going to have big decisions. He's already seen both Blind's House and Paradox Cave. I actually think he can route both together with his knowledge, so I expect Oneup to just immediately retrace his steps and get the items that he has already located as a bunny. Whereas Walther is going to be able to more or less just charge forward here. I guess there's almost a downside for Walther because he's going to find the Dark World, and it's going to be really tempting for him to just jump down. It might be a while before he discovers the way to the top of the mountain where we know Blind's house is. Also, are those blue male Bowser colors Ludwig colors? They kind of look like it to me.
It's a really well done sprite. I love the anti-fairy sprite too.
Yeah, Walther is not taking the bait and not jumping down. He's going to check his other connector, and if he follows it up and does work on the mountain, this is going to pay off pretty heavily for Walther. Oh, come on. We are watching a race of a Zelda hack from like a 20-year-old game, technically analyzing what everyone's doing here. There's two kinds of people here. Self-admitted nerds and nerds who are lying to themselves.
I'm a very proud, self-admitted nerd.
A minor point to observe, Walther has run himself out of bombs. I don't think he has any pressing bomb needs likely to come up all that soon, but it's always something that you worry about. Just that 0 can put you in some bad spots. We also get the Eastern Big Key from Blind's Hut. I feel that's something both runners are going to really want to follow up as soon as any save and quit presents itself. It's just really appealing to finish a dungeon. We don't really know much of anything about what's a pendant or a crystal, but it's likely enough Eastern's a crystal. Oh man, Misery, Mire, and Desert. Walther doesn't want any part of Misery Mire here. Without the big key and without a fire source, you can't get too much in Mire, but that's kind of in a bad location. I would be really tempted to dive in and just get what I can get, but I am, of course, a founding member of the Misery Mire fan club, so take what I say with a grain of salt or a bottle full of mire.
I appreciate Mire much more in Crosskeys versus regular rando.
So another temptation point for Walther would have been to jump down and beat Eastern right there. He would have lost his connector, though, so I totally understand the decision not to do that. Because with his current knowledge, getting back to this location is pretty inconvenient. Oneup getting the good news. Hyrule Castle right goes to King's Tomb. Good news, you never have to go back there. Bad news, you have to save and quit right now.
Walther.
Oh man, what a well-placed shop. I think Walther's about to find Paradox Cave.
Yeah, those are some big item locations that Walter's going to be able to do the first time through versus Oneup having to go back and do them. There's back of Skullwoods.
I have seen the Cane of Samaria in this chest multiple times very recently. It would bring a smile to my face to get a red cane here today. It is a red magic item. And, yeah, this is where I say this is fate, and I go and kill Mothula. I think a lot of runners would find this fight a little scary, but, I mean, you have a decent health pool. You do have half magic. I don't think Walther will have too terrible of a time here, but you definitely can't afford to just goof off in the fight. I mean, if Commentator Curse gives people Fire Rod, I wish I could commentate my own race and curse myself all day.
I'm starting to get really concerned that there is something of great value in GT, considering we haven't found either Samaria or the hammer to really get any further in the dungeon. And we found it so early.
Yeah, that Fire Rod does open GT upstairs. You have the hook shot. You're thinking about the climb, but with all this Dark World to explore, you're probably not going to rush up there. And that was a very good Mothula fight from Walther. Several of those hits I was really concerned weren't going to count for the spikes, but he threaded the needle, and he got both a crystal and the flute. Flute is usually not a required item, but boy is it convenient. Especially with those useful connectors on West Death Mountain. It's just extra value to an already useful movement option.
doesn't make the Eastern Palace trip look so bad either. Well, it looks like Oneup is going to go ahead and dip Misery Mire.
Yeah, I agree with this decision. Just dive deep into the mire, let yourself be covered by it, and hopefully you'll get a good item, and if you don't, well, that's too bad.
He could even pull the lamp out of here and be able to check those firelock sides.
There were so many reasons to believe the lamp was going to show up soon, but the more we see, the more possible it is that the lamp is actually really buried, and everything involving the Aga 1 logic was just a huge red herring. So Ganon's Tower Compass will help you out when you go to Ganon's Tower and are looking at that number to think anxiously about the chest you're working toward. And yeah, Walther chose to go... In terms of just a routing thing, Walther chose to do South Dark World instead of North. So he is not going to find Paradox Cave as quickly as he might have otherwise. But if you really think about the knowledge he had, this is really logical. He has a connector going into North Dark World anyways, so why not clear out the South Dark World and get the static overworld items on his way?
Ooh, there's Samaria.
Who would ever think there would be a version of A Link to the Past with Cane of Samaria and Misery Mire? So, that cane, in combination with the Fire Rod, will open a lot of stuff in Ganon's Tower. Neither player has the full puzzle. Walther is going to be in really no hurry to go back to Misery Mire. Oneup may find Skullwood sooner rather than later.
It also opens up a good bit of Ice Palace. Not so much the entire thing, but you can at least get in and do some damage in there. With
I would also
Samaria being in Mire.
I would like to inform our lovely tracker who is commentating in chat that I don't like to say it's propaganda. That's such an ugly word. It is a Misery Mire information campaign.
That is amazing.
So this could actually be a pretty long-term asymmetry, as Oneup doesn't have the bow, and I don't foresee Oneup being in a huge hurry to go get the bow. Walther doesn't have the Cane of Samaria, and I really don't see him hurrying back to Mire, unless he finds the Mire Big Key, maybe? Of course, he's also going to want to wait for the Cane, and we know that's not going to work.
He's going to do that Eastern play.
Yeah, Oneup's choice not to Death Warp there is an interesting decision. It's probably very, very slightly faster to walk out, but you're making the whole thing a lot harder on yourself. And yeah, Walter's going for the super safe play and just clearing Eastern. Like, it's really likely this is a crystal. I think we're still a little north of 50-50 on it, and you get 2 checks. It's just hard to imagine you would complete the seed without making this play sooner or later, so you might as well knock it out.
Some very nice serpentine action from Oneup over there, taking out Mothula to get his blue.
Yeah, I don't feel that was quite as quick as Walther's, but it was still a decisive win, and Mothula doesn't always play as nice. Like, it is true that all bosses have the same seeded RNG, but pragmatically speaking, Mothula's random patterns aren't something you can really react to that well. And I think a lot of his movement is dictated by your movement, so even though you have the same seeded RNG in the fight, I don't think it really is a good indicator both runners will have the same Mothula fight. For other bosses, it's a more significant factor.
The cape.
Cape means bumper cave. If you choose to check where that goes, is now a two-way connector. If you find your way on top of the castle, you can do stuff. It's a nice safety, and you got a crystal anyway, so I mean, you had to do this. It's mostly just upside from here. So I would totally go and buy bombs from the shop in Paradox Cave in Onup's position here. I wonder if he's going to make the same play. Looks like he's not too interested in what that bomb shop has to offer, but he is interested in checking the rest of these chests, and there's a pretty high probability of some value here. Shovel is definitely the classic case of delayed disappointment in this game, but who knows? Maybe this seed will be different. Get a couple of keys. The GT key is especially spicy, given everything else we know. And we get Ether, which is probably not required, but you never know. Maybe it is. So, okay, Walther just saving and quitting out of Castle Tower. With his movement there, I was wondering if he was planning to finish, and I was a little concerned for him.
Yeah, Oneup already knows where those connectors are, so he doesn't really need to worry about checking the rest of Paradox. Because he did get a chance to check both of them. We're still missing quite a few dungeons.
Just, what, Hera, Thieves, and Ice?
And a lot of the turtle rocks. Oh, I like this play from Oneup. I've been itching to see what is in Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, this is a super easy decision in Onup's perspective. He doesn't have a dilemma in his mind about climbing. He doesn't have the bow, but he knows he can do a lot of work on right side. So in terms of key logic, this tile room is actually the only chest in logic right now, but I mean, when it comes to like GT smalls, you always figure there's another one around the bend anyway. You don't let yourself get too hung up on it.
This might be a Meyer play from Walter. No, wrong connector. Sorry.
Yeah, making the dive into Meyer would be huge for Walther, but I just don't see him making that a priority. when he still has, a bunch of basic work in the Dark World to do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not a terrible connector at all. Just getting access to Southeast Dark World quickly. Tends to be a very out-of-the-way location. Today, I guess it's a little bit of a hype location. Well, there's a GT small, so that puts Ice Armos into logic. Obviously, from Walther's perspective, he'll need the red cane for that, but that's relevant.
For being an hour in, we certainly don't have very many items.
Yeah, this is definitely more of a connector seed than a open-ended seed, so everything just kind of goes a little slower in this type of seed, as you just have to go through a lot more work to do checks. And the amount of work you have to do to make checks is just kind of growing as time goes on, and the easier checks are removed from the table.
I am a little disappointed with Ganon's tower so far.
I mean, it's disappointing you now, so it can throw you later when you go upstairs. Though the stuff here behind Ice Armos is very appealing. This is fully in logic if you add together what both runners have. It's in logic if you're playing from the chat.
This fight is so tedious in low percent.
It's not that bad with Fighter's Sword. Like, it's obviously much worse than having bow, but it can easily be so much worse if you're swordless. Like, have you ever had the pleasure of fighting this with the boomerang?
I have indeed, and it's the worst.
You say it's the worst, but I honestly think hammer only might be even worse.
That's fair. Ooh, small to swamp.
I would say Master Sword is very good for Ice Armos if you have full health, and pretty bad if you don't. And yeah, Swamp Small is spicy. We haven't found the dam yet, but it's on your mind. And there's a huge error from Oneup. He has the GT big key and just walked past a closed big chest. A chest that a chest we know is in logic. That could be devastating. I'm trusting our trackers, of course, but I know we found it. I'm pretty sure Oneup found it. I seem to remember at least him seeing it, and it's marked on both their trackers.
Oh, that had to have been super early. Wow. Yeah, that's a big mistake.
Like, it's not a big deal if he remembers it and is able to find Hammer otherwise. But if that chest is important, like if it is Hammer, it's really easy to lose a race just instantly on that, because you are absolutely last locationing that if you can't do left side along with it.
Oh, for sure. Looks like Skullwoods is not going to play nicely with us today.
But in the situation they're in terms of Skull Keys, I think this is actually a pretty safe scenario. You've already killed Moth. You have an extra key to open the doors. It doesn't really matter where the drop leads. You can get everything you want anyway. I think that's everyone's objectively favorite key in Crosskeys, the Tower of Hera small key pulled out of Skullwoods. And there's our sewers key. So we are a lamp or boots from Bo being in logic. And also, with that sewers key, we can fairly safely say that Aga 1 was just a red herring here. There's still some chance he's logically required to return a super bomb without having the hammer, but those odds are looking really low at this point. Yeah, I guess the boots don't actually do anything. It's just the lamp puts the bow in logic. It's that simple. Ooh, we learned Misery Myers the green pendant. So that's kind of a big deal piece of information. If Walther finds this, that might further lead him away from Misery Meyer. While we find the Hera big, I don't think most players value that very highly now that Herapod is so prevalent as a tech. But it does mean you don't orphan a chest when you're doing it. Not that Tower of Hera appears to be anywhere this seed.
It's completely MIA.
I find it really interesting neither player has made the play toward the Eastern Dark World yet. I also find it really interesting Oneup took the Wallmaster Express back to the start. And then is coming in here, killing the Stalfos to avoid the despawn, and now is going for this magic. It seems probably like what he didn't want to do there. Oh, we've kind of been waiting on this play. Walther is choosing to take the dive into Turtle Rock. Now, this first chest he's almost certainly going to check is not in logic without all the Turtle Rock small keys. But the second chest he's going to check is in logic with nothing. So it's always a very interesting chest in Crosskeys. So our less logical chest is the book. Book is definitely kind of an annoying item. You can go all the way to the desert main entrance and watch that animation for one entrance, and you can do two really remote singles that you can't actually get the item without a Master Sword, but those spots exist regardless, so I guess having the book as early as you can is still nice, just to avoid any further problems with it.
I'm surprised he didn't take the Poke Room just to see where that connector takes him.
I mean, Walther couldn't because you need the Cane of Samaria to continue in that direction, and that is just sitting in some mire.
To the laser bridge, to the laser eyes.
Oh, yes, that connector. Yeah, that would have made a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
That could have been our dark mire access. I do like that he's checking Magic Bat, though.
And Walther's already checked the shovels, so he's getting points on the Diligent Fetch Quest Follower list. Of course, he's not getting rewards for it, but he's getting points for being diligent. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting question what the seed wants them to do at this point. Because currently we have to remember both our bow and our glove are not logical. And I don't know that we have a ton of other options. Probably East Dark World. It really feels like there's not much else that is logical. This book is also not logical. Okay, Mini Moldorm Cave is behind the book. Well, behind book or Mirror plus Myths. I think at this point we're pretty unlikely to find a connector to the Mire region, so you probably just need the Myths to enter the old-fashioned way.
Okay. That's big for Walther. Both of those are.
So, the pod big key I don't think is going to influence his immediate decisions very much. He's going to want to wait for a hammer to go back there and probably more pod keys while he's at it. But that Mire big key could really tempt him to going straight back to Mire. And if he does, he's going to be pretty heavily rewarded. He can actually finish the dungeon for the green pendant, which he totally doesn't know it's green pendant, but even if he did know, I'm not sure it would be such a bad call.
I mean, at this point, he's certainly running out of places that he can check, so Mire is going to have a lot more appeal, especially that he can get, what, 9 of the 10 items?
Walther can full clear Mire with what we know, because he's going to be able to get the Cane of Samaria within Mire. Of course, Walther getting the negative discovery that Mire is a pendant. It's a negative discovery for him because it just is going to reduce the value of making the Mire play in his mind. And I think both players from opposite directions are working toward the same play of East Dark World, which is probably where the logical progression is. I don't know if it's going to be practical progression, but probably logical progression. And it wouldn't surprise me even a little if what we find here is the lamp, and the next real progression is up Ganon's tower.
That's painful, especially if Aga 2 isn't required.
Lamp is relevant because Lamp puts bow into logic. Oh, and if we want another spicy thing to consider, there could still be value in Zelda's chest.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Oh, Miron Catfish is definitely nice.
So let us keep another thing in mind. That glove is out of logic without both lamp and all the pod small keys. So another glove could easily be forthcoming, or that mirror might not be very early progression. Of course, Mir just practically is going to be a huge value for Walther right away. He's heading straight to the pyramid anyway, and with that cape from Armos Knights, he's going to be able to check all of the entrances on top of Hyrule Castle. So not really seeing much of anything in the pod area. We're not done yet. We have pod itself to check. While Walther's getting to work on the castle. Again, so far not much. Still an entrance left. It would be fascinating if this region of the world really were just barren. It would make me think Zelda's cell really might be important.
That could very easily be the lamp.
Okay, we had a quick map check. I saw Swamp was a pendant. I think I was Crystal Ice, was it? I didn't get the clearest of looks.
Ooh, there's Ice Palace.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do logically here. You hate doing ice without the hammer, but after you've made this really long trip and when you have everything else you need for this, I think you almost have to go for it, and you just hope hammer's in here and you can just finish up the dungeon.
Well, Smaria was in Mire.
Yeah, they're both going to find this in the same way, and it's going to be just flat out nicer for Oneup because he's going to be able to do Icebreaker, which in this case is both going to be faster and it's going to allow him to do one additional check. Because without the hammer, normally it's not actually possible to get to this vanilla big key chest, but with Icebreaker, it becomes possible. So that tells us that the hammer is not behind the mitts. Good information.
Interesting.
Desert small. I don't believe Oneup has actually located the desert big yet. But Walther has, killing Landmo's in logic, as is doing the whole left side of desert, or right side of desert. So Ice-T here is the last chest Oneup can do if he does. Well, no, he can do the big chest, but he's quickly going to get down to just hammer to go. And TR big is interesting. It actually opens a whole lot of stuff in Turtle Rock Oneup can do. He can go to Laser Bridge. It's out of logic without the lamp, but if the lamp's just in Zelda's cell anyway, maybe we just never get the lamp, right? Yeah, iced tea is not a chest that cares at all about keys. You can get to it any way you want. So, Oneup, oh, he's just going to this freezer to get a helpful warp back to the entrance. I was wondering what he was doing continuing, because that very critical and useful mirror shield that he pulled from the big chest is the last item he's going to be able to get from Ice Palace. So the good news for Oneup is he's going to have some type of a mirror when he goes to the pyramid. The bad news is that he's a lot more likely to need to teleport than block lasers. So it's not actually going to allow him to check those entrances. We know the entrances are bad, but he's probably going to eventually make a second trip just to learn that himself. Okay, so we just learned Thieves is a pendant. So I think between both runners, we know what all the pendants and crystals are, right?
Yes.
Swamp, Thieves, and Mire are our pendants for today. I would also point out that Thieves, we have found neither the small key, nor the big key, nor the front door. So it's entirely likely that we're not going to have a whole lot to do with Thieves Town this seed. Definitely, I think Oneup has a lot of interesting rabbit holes he can explore. It's an interesting question all around what he chooses. In his position, I would probably be tempted Turtle Rock, but definitely Desert Rite is very close to equally compelling.
I definitely see Walter mirroring here and taking care of Lamula's.
Yeah, it's a really just logical play. And Walther, come on, have some. Like, Walther was kind of a victim of just not adapting on the fly there, because he got everything he needed to finish Landmalus. He just was a mirror away, but it didn't factor into his thinking, because when he did that overworld route, the possibility of that play hadn't even occurred to him. So he was just kind of continuing with his prior plans, not quickly retooling them to a particularly convenient sudden find. So yeah, Oneup just beelined it back to the upper part of the castle, whereas Walther did a little bit of checking on Turtle Rock, but did not continue to Laser Bridge. I guess he wants to play it safe with keys.
So he can't get to Laser Bridge. He doesn't have smart.
Yeah, that would be a really helpful item, wouldn't it? And we get a just beautiful connector to hammer pegs here. See, that connector is really nice if there's actually something good in that drop, because you mirror behind the hammer spot and get in there without hammer or mitts. It's fascinating how the logic can let that happen, but I don't think there was anything important in there today.
Oh, this might be the Meyer play for Walter. It really needs to be the Meyer play for Walter.
I think he's checking some more of these DM entrances. Justifiable, but not... Well, it may be rewarding. We don't know. There could be other good things here, right?
True.
I'd say Master Sword is a good find. It's not necessarily the one find you need right away, but everything is faster with a sword upgrade. And sword upgrades are just kind of... They're progressive in more ways than one. They're both progressive in that you keep getting a different sword, but also each one is less valuable than the one before it. Like, swordless to having a sword is the best upgrade of all. Then you get an upgrade that makes the game possible to beat. Then you get one that makes combat easy. And then you get one that makes your sword yellow.
How about that connector? No, Walter, go to Misery Mire, please.
So Walther's just pure hatred of the loving embrace of Misery Mire is distressing and is leaving him quite caneless. But
although this
he is following up other possibilities. Yeah, and these monoliths are definitely interesting now. We have a book, we have a Master Sword. The book's not that far out of logic. We've seen 3 of the 4 TR small keys between both runners. Both players electing to pick up the piece of heart, which... I mean, I guess it is a very nice piece of heart. You always want to keep your 20 heart dreams alive, but... We're beginning to wonder again, where is our next stage in progression?
Oh, Walter didn't mirror there either.
Have they mirrored at the foothills? I don't think either has. Of course, Oneup hasn't been back in that area yet, but Walther just kind of charged right on by. So Oneup's going to take one of the plays that we kind of were looking at much earlier and take Bumper Cave as a connector. I think it's likely this is bad at this point, but we don't really know. Ooh, wow, it's the connector to the Maya region. Okay, that is very significant. So there's 3 entrances here that are just obviously in logic, because you need nothing further to get to them, and 3 more that are out of logic, but Oneup, as a practical matter, can check them. Really likely between all 6, we're going to find something to help us advance in this seed. Well, the Thieves' Small is definitely not the item that you particularly wanted to see. Well, Oneup does know Thieves is a pendant, and he knows Thieves is seemingly nowhere, so just not an appealing find all around.
Potion shop up on Graveyard Ledge. There's the dam.
Okay, so that's important information. The dam is behind either the other glove or the lamp and all the rest of the pod keys. And the dam being behind that means everything in Swamp is behind that. So that means you're not worried about Swamp for your next logical progression. Oh, but you forget the mirror was glove locked.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that puts the bow in logic without the lamp. So the lamp could be an upper GT now. That's spicy. I'm really beginning to suspect upper GT is probably the play, just for logical progression. Of course, Oneup's going to get all of his treasure from Mini Moldorm Cave here, his pair of big keys. It'll be interesting to see what he chooses to do with them. We also have the fun situation that Walther has silver arrows from 2 very distant locations, faster than Oneup has found either bow. It's actually shocking in a lot of ways. Oneup has still not gone back to Hyrule Castle. Especially going back to Palace of Darkness here. Or no, he's going to Swamp. Okay, this makes sense. It's only 2 checks. It's not logical, but it is fast. But I do have to wonder if he's really considering the play into the castle at this point.
What if Hammer's in Zelda's cell?
If Hammer is in Zelda's cell, that certainly paints a picture of a lot of stuff going on in this seed.
I mean, at this point, I feel like Zelda's cell has to have something.
With what we found in Desert Right, the other bow, upper GT, I think is more likely, but Zelda's cell is certainly possible. Yeah, I totally expect Oneup to make the laser bridge play here, which be interesting. We don't know what it's going to yield, but it could be interesting. I will say I don't feel like this connector is really likely to be valuable at all.
I mean, it's either going to have to be Ganon's Tower, Turtle Rock, or the Top of Bumper Cave, I think, at this point.
So, sauteed onions, to answer your question in chat, because it is an excellent question. When we talk about the logic... Oh, there's just a hammer on laser bridge. That's very interesting. So, with 3 Turtle Rock small keys as well, Lamp puts the hammer in logic as well. And Lamp puts the Swamp Big Key. Well, I guess that's not that exciting, but it does. Lamp is... Oh yeah, you're not getting in that very easily. Lamp is probably what the logic has them looking for, and it would not surprise me at all if Walther's about to climb GT to get his Lamp. But anyway, to answer the question on what is logic, so the randomizer places the items in a way to guarantee the seed is possible to beat without using any glitches at all. So when you use a glitch and you find an important item in a way you otherwise couldn't get to with your current items, you know there has to be a different sequence you could have gotten the items, and the item you got with the glitch is out of logic. Additionally, the keys are placed in such a way that you can make the worst possible decisions with your keys and be completely safe. You're not going to be able to key lock yourself in the seed. So when you spend a limited key resource and find something good behind it, when you could have used your keys worse, you are also working outside of the logic. And trying to disentangle the puzzle of what the game wants you to do versus what you can do is an interesting balance that all runners have somewhat different opinions on how they should handle it. So yeah, Oneup almost certainly has taken the viewpoint here that the item he's skipping out of logic is just the lamp. Oneup doesn't need a lamp to beat the game. He's going to charge forward in this seed and work forward in Swamp Palace. And nothing in that chest, but there is a lot more swamp to go. Swamp is a pretty item-rich dungeon. We know it's a pendant, but Oneup does not, so in his mind, this is even extra valuable because there is a good chance that he's going to get a crystal here.
Looks like he's setting up for Dagger Down.
Actually, some very clean Wizrobe rooms without the Cane of Samaria. Runners very rarely practice those strats because they come up so seldom. But certainly, if you're familiar in a situation like Walther has found himself in, they can save you a good chunk of time.
Really nice diver down with the laid bomb for Oneup.
So, we're about to answer our mystery. What is an upper GT? Oh, just our logical first glove and our Bamos medallion. Bamos opens the mire entrance, but we've come out of it as a connector, so that's no big deal. That glove, which is a mitt, is a big deal. Not surprisingly at all, the lamp is up here. So, yeah. That's actually really dangerous for Oneup. He's probably correctly deduced that some horrible play like upper GT leads to the lamp. But it also leads to the mitts. And we have not located Crystal Hera yet. It is really easy to believe that Crystal Hera is behind the mitts somehow. I guess we really only have 2 mitts entrances to check. We have the Ice Palace entrance. Wait, that's the only one, isn't it?
Yep. It could very logically be over the quarreling brothers, the mirror side. I don't believe anyone's checked that. It could be behind the 5-6. Because we can basically have the knowledge to beat both dungeons. There's another sword in Swamp.
But yeah, that Ice Palace entrance, I feel, is going to be a huge swing point for this race. Because Upper GT was definitely logically required for the lamp. But practically speaking, these runners don't need the lamp. They'll be just fine without it. And the mitts are the spicy question. If the Ice Palace entrance is required, it being Tower of Hera is definitely the easiest way for it to be required, but not the only way. Then Walther, I think, is in a very powerful position here. On the other hand, if it's not required and Oneup avoids that play and eventually goes to one of his 2 bows, then I think he's in a really strong position here, having the entirety of Swamp Palace done.
So it was Lost Thief behind Aga 2, which was just a hard piece, but now we know. This also opens up the Smith and the Purple chest. Because we do still need that Ice Rod.
So with that red pendant pulled from Swamp, Oneup should have full pendant crystal knowledge. He's probably not too thrilled about that, but he knows what he needs to do. And another surprising thing is that Oneup has still not gone back for Armos Knights. Definitely the sort of play you would expect him to make sooner rather than later. So, yeah, the problem there was that Bamos, or the Mire entrance was how you got into the Mire region. I think Walther just forgot about that. I think he'd already seen it.
He really needs to go to Mire.
He kind of went to Mire, but just Mire's not there anymore.
Yeah, he needs to go to the real Mire. Stop giving me heart attacks.
Oneup picking up his...
Oh
wow.
My god.
Okay, Upper GT is hard required. There is Tower of Hera. We know it's a crystal. So, Walther is in a clear lead with this discovery. At this point, Walther has found every crystal dungeon. I have to assume that either GT entrance or Super Bomb leads to Thieves Town, based on what we've seen, and I don't think anyone's in a hurry to find Pendant Thieves. More spice, we have the Ice Rod in the front of Turtle Rock. It's really just a question of when is Oneup going to climb, which is a decision he can't even make right now because he doesn't have either bow. Because he has put off Hyrule Castle forever and has put off Desert Rite forever. Both bows are very easily accessible to Oneup, and he just needs one of them. And yeah, Oneup's just going to go and kill Helmasaur King. It's a very easy decision to agree with. He knows he has to do this eventually. And furthermore, it's going to let him check where the front door goes anyway.
So we had Samaria and Ice Rod in their respective dungeons today.
Are we now just giving up on Ice Rod and deciding its natural dungeon is just Turtle Rock?
Yes.
We found our 4th sword in Hera Basement. Walther hasn't been to Swamp yet. From what we saw, he might be able to get away without ever going to Swamp, so that could be the sword he ends the game with.
Ooh, that big key is not something good to find at this point.
I don't know that it's really that big of a deal, because I don't really anticipate either player ever finding the front door to the place.
Yeah, I mean, odds are good it's in Ganon's tower.
So I think we have seen everything we need between both runners to finish this seed, right?
Yes. Wait, yes.
So on Walther's end, he needs to go back to Meyer to get the Kana Samaria. And I think with that alone, he would have enough to just finish things up. Oh no, he also needs to go to Laser Brit. He needs to explore Turtle Rock fully to get both Ice Rod and Hammer. And he needs to go back for the Kana Samaria in Misery Mire. On Oneup's end, he needs to find the Desert Big Key. Where was that again? I feel like it wasn't in that bad of a location.
I'm trying to check my notes. I don't think I wrote it down. Yeah, I must have missed it. It must have been super early when everything was going horribly wrong for my Discord. Finally, that Meyer dip for Walter.
Okay, so we don't actually know if we have the Desert Big Key, which also would totally explain Walther not fighting Landmalus if he just doesn't have it. And that could be our real go mode. Walther's gonna find his Kana Samaria here in Misery Mire. So that's gonna be a pretty big deal. Probably gonna lead him to right side GT. I don't know that's going to really help him, but it's also going to lead him to Turtle Rock, which is going to really push him forward in this seed.
We still have more of Ice Palace we can do now.
And yeah, I would expect Oneup to be making his way to Ice Palace here. It looks like that's what he's doing. He might have had a little uncertainty about which entrance it was in. At this point, Oneup's viewpoint has to be I'm going to get all the crystals I can right now, and then I'm going to figure out what I do. If he finds the desert... Oh, no, not at all. If he finds the desert big key doing this, that's going to push him that much closer to done. Of course, he's going to be pretty well out of options as soon as he finishes ice until he goes and picks up one of his 2 bows. Doesn't matter which one, just get one of them. So Meyer big chest was nothing. That's important for Oneup, as he's never going to want to come back to Misery Mire. I don't know that Walther is going to choose to fight Vitreous. Vitreous is very slow as a single check, and he probably feels reasonably confident that that Cane of Samaria is his value, but he is going this way instead of just going straight to the last chest to mirror out. So he's at least considering the play. We'll see if he commits to it. So I didn't see... what happened to Oneup? I guess an accidental mirror. That's a painful time loss. Ice Palace is just a very long, linear dungeon ever since the whole Icebreaker thing happened. Even before Icebreaker, it was a long, non-linear dungeon. So it's just a very big time loss to ever hit mirror inside. So yeah, with Silver Arrows, this Vitreous fight is going to be incredibly fast and easy. It's mostly the walk here that makes it time-consuming. And it is 2 items. It's the green pendant. And it's also a third of pedestal, but with Thieves Town still MIA, this really doesn't feel like a ped seed. Could be wrong, though. So yeah, the red cane was really the only value in Mire at all, so unless there's something important behind that green pendant, I think Oneup will be pretty safe to never go back. The question is, what is Walther going to do to follow up on this Cane of Samaria? I think his logical plays are GT or Turtle Rock, and we know Turtle Rock is far more lucrative than GT here. Especially because if he has the hammer when he goes back to GT, it's likely enough that leads to his Desert Big and puts him in true go mode. But he's choosing GT. It's really easy to see making this decision. With our superpower of watching both runners, we know this isn't the right call, but there are more items here than in Turtle Rock. They're far less spread out. It's just really a logical decision. Just unfortunately not the correct one. I mean, in terms of where I want Desert Big Key to be, I want it to be in Zelda's chest.
Who hurt you? That is cold as ice.
I think Zelda's chest is a very fair location to both runners for it to be. I think it gives them both good opportunities. So left side GT here is like the actual numbers play for where it probably is. And I feel if Desert Big is here, that's going to be a pretty significant advantage for Oneup. And I definitely think likely Oneup doesn't get what he wants from left side GT. He's just going to climb. And we know he has to climb, not for the lamp, which the logic thinks is the big deal, but for the mitts.
I mean, I guess he could climb if he knows Mimic Clip.
Yeah, he doesn't have the... Why is he here? I don't understand how he still hasn't gone to either Desert Right or the back of the sewers. Like, one or the other, right? They're both such free plays.
It's spite at this point. I feel like the boots almost have to be in here, though.
So Oneup is continuing to the big chest. I don't know if he realizes the mistake he made, but he realizes he still hasn't opened it, which is good enough. Of course, it's just a piece of heart, but we didn't know that.
So no boots as of yet. They must be in Thieves Town. Or Pod.
Or the pedestal.
Ooh.
You know, back in my day, we had to walk, and it was uphill both ways, and there was always a blizzard. And we liked it. They'll be fine.
I guess the Small Swamp isn't really gonna turn Walter as of yet without having that hammer. He does need to go to Thieves Town, though. Or Turtle Rock, and that looks like where he's headed. Nope. Going right to Swamp. Walter, no.
I mean, he's just checking one chest. He's not going to make it any further than this without the hammer.
I know. He just likes to make me a liar, apparently. That's like the third time this race. I've been like, oh, he's going. He's like, nope.
You only need 3 keys to put reaching the laser bridge from the front into logic, because if you are able to spin the key on the path to Trinex, and clearly you have access to laser bridge anyway.
Now Oneup's going to get us both.
Yeah, the back of escape, but I have a feeling he's never going to get. Like, as soon as he gets this bow, I expect him to, in some order, kill both Armos Knights and Helmsar King. And then probably climb GT. So fans of the green pendant were probably feeling just a little bit disappointed there. It led to absolutely nothing. Meaning, unless we have some crazy ped seed, which I'm not going to say it's impossible. Actually, it is impossible, because super impossible. We could find boots, and then thieves could be behind boots. A lot of horrible things could happen, but it's really improbable. If that doesn't happen, going back to Meyer has no value for Oneup. Okay, Thieves Town is accessible. Wow.
Oh my.
The bad news is that this is a mostly completely not required dungeon. The potentially good news for Oneup is that it's not unbelievable that the Desert Big would be in here. It is 8 items. Obviously, if you're a Walther fan, you'd really prefer Thieves Town to be just a big old waste of time for Oneup. Of course, do you even commit to beating Thieves Town right now when you can beat both Pod and Eastern, and you know they're crystals, and you know this is a pendant? You just got a Pod small key in the front.
Oh yeah, he's piecing out.
Yeah, Oneup doesn't have the big key anyway. I guess Walther's the only one who has located that. Oh, Thieves' big key was an upper GT, wasn't it?
No.
It was in Hera, which is behind upper GT.
Yeah. I don't understand why Walter keeps avoiding going into Turtle Rock.
I mean, you know, turtles are scary, dangerous, powerful animals. I mean, they're just hiding in their shell. Nothing you do can really hurt them. You know, they can just come out and snap at you whenever they want.
That's
He's just
fair.
playing it
He
safe.
also doesn't have the ice rod yet, which is in Turtle Rock.
Well,
There we
he's
go.
going to get the ice rod here. Unfortunately, he needs to go to Laser Bridge for the hammer. And I don't remember where Quake was. He could find the Laser Bridge via actually opening the TR entrance, but he would need to find Quake to do it. It's much nicer to just go to Trinex. Then again, he might be really tempted to just go to Trinex now that he has an ice rod. Yeah, Oneup's going to clear Eastern here. He's going to get the cape, which is going to be mostly a negative find, as it's going to tempt him to check the castle tower entrance for nothing. Because Oneup at this point, I think, really desperately wants to find Hera, and we know he needs to find the Mitts and upper GT to do it. But of course, Oneup has no way to know that. Yeah, I don't think Walther was going to continue from that entrance, mostly because Walther's only found 3 of the 4 Turtle Rock small keys, so he would keylock himself if he unlocked all those doors. He needs to go back to the big chest entrance, which is luckily very accessible, so that won't be an issue for him.
Nice routing to get these one-off checks done, though. Oh, there it is.
So, that puts Walther in the enviable position of Hammer Go mode. Hammer Go mode is really nice because Hammer blocks a lot of stuff, and Walther now knows everything behind Hammer is garbage. And we also know, really, the next play that makes sense for Walther to do, which is Laser Bridge and Trinex, will give him the hammer anyway. Walther is definitely in the driver's seat here. Let's see, what's the state of the race? Walther has 3 crystals. This will be his 4th. Oneup has 4 crystals. This is going to be his 5th. So Oneup's a little ahead on crystals. He has a little time to catch up, but he has to do a GT climb, and that's not going to be great. And he isn't likely to do it immediately anyway. I would say it's very probable Walther will win this race, but if Oneup God routes from here on out, I think he still has a chance.
I think Walter's double checking to make sure he's in go mode.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what he was looking for there. Maybe he was just checking if it was boots. Boots would still be nice to have, even though it seems pretty clear they're not required at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that is an excellent point. Walther does not know what all the pendants and crystals are. So, Walther knows for sure this is a crystal. But Walther doesn't know whether Pod or Thieves is the last crystal, and he hasn't located Thieves Town yet. Of course, what he's going to do after this, almost inevitably, is just go kill Helmassar King to learn if it's a crystal, and he'll see a crystal drop, and then he'll know he just has to go kill Cold Stare, kill Ganon. And yeah, Walter's just going for it. He's like, okay, in my current game state, killing Helmassar King and watching a crystal drop is go mode. And if I do get a pendant, well, this is still an item check. And I already have the pendant from Meyer, and I have the ability to clear swamps, so there's a chance it's required anyway. We, of course, know he's going to see a crystal, and it's just going to put him immediately in go mode. Well, Oneup finds the boots in a very spicy location. They are in the vanilla big key chest in Pod, a chest people don't tend to check very early. We can say with a lot of confidence Walther will never find those boots, but I don't think it's really going to matter. Actually, I honestly think it's likely the boots cost Oneup time, because whatever advantage running is going to offer him is going to be offset by the time he's going to spend checking all the boots entrances looking for Hera.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I'd also like to point out a beautiful bit of routing synergy that Walther is going to be able to use. Ice Palace is in the Pod entrance, and Desert Finals in the eastern entrance. He can just go to Ice, beat it, mirror, beat Landmo, and that's going to be a 2-for-1 right there. I mean, the 6-pod small key is obviously in Zelda's chest, right?
Something has to be in Zelda's chest. Oh, there's the bug net.
Of course, we know surely Oneup had that bug net anyway, as he's already killed Helmassar King. So now they can bottle fairies if they're worried with their 15 hearts in Oneup's case and 17 hearts in Walther's case could just not be enough. I mean, am I really interested in Zelda that way? Like, the only thing I've ever seen Zelda do in any Zelda game is get kidnapped and get her kingdom invaded. She doesn't seem like a model leader to me. She seems like the sort of person you would kind of shy away from, right?
I mean, she's pretty important in Breath of the Wild.
Where she spends most of the game trapped in a mass of Ganon goop?
Yes.
That's the lore. I didn't do it. That's just what the game is.
I like how at the end, or no spoilers, never mind. She always seems to have that bow that could defeat him, but just can't fire an arrow. That's all I'm saying. Like, it was in, Ocarina of Time as well.
Randomizer, and she just can't find a magic meter.
That's fair. That single arrow of destiny is the one she needed the whole time.
Yeah, at this point, Walther is totally sure he's in go mode. He's not even opening any more chests. He is just rushing to the end. Grabbing this key, of course, as he needs it for the fastest path. Yeah, at this point, I think whatever hopes Oneup has have evaporated. He's heading back into Mire. We know he's not going to find anything. And we know that at this point, Walther just has very little remaining work in order to get all of his crystals. Even if Oneup were given a spoiler log right now, it's just going to be a little too late for him. Yeah, like, I can't really fault Oneup for a lot of his decisions. I kind of fault him for how long it took him to find the bow, but not climbing GT, like, I would totally believe in his position that you're just skipping the lamp. And he was skipping the lamp in upper GT. There just also happened to be myths up there that only open one entrance. Too bad it's the entrance with Hera in it.
I know, what are the odds of that? Well, apparently pretty good, but still. I also feel like I would be more inclined to check the back of Hyrule Castle instead of coming to here as well.
I mean, the back of Hyrule Castle is just, it's a spooky place.
That's fair.
Rats, really.
Bats.
I mean, there's rats in the dark. They're just holding keys. It's really concerning. But yeah, to be more serious and not just kind of poke fun here, Probably a lot of Oneup's thinking with some of the very early game stuff he just never did is, well, if the answer's here, I just lose. And there is a bow in the back of the castle, but it's not at this point super relevant to how this race is going to turn out. Having silver arrows wouldn't change the story for Oneup. If he would have climbed GT earlier with that bow, it could be relevant, but that's really impossible to say. It's likely not even Oneup himself can say how having that bow earlier would have changed his decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of runners in the tournament kind of commit to places that they're going to orphan, and it's one of those, well, if I lose the game because I didn't do it, it's kind of just accept it. Like, if you're gonna skip Zora, that you kind of commit to that, and that's obviously your last location.
And yeah, we have a Tempered Sword Silver's Ganon fight coming from Walther, which is, I think most runners would agree, a pretty cozy Ganon fight. 17 hearts, half magic. You even have the cape if you want to use it. So this shouldn't be too big of a problem for Walther to just mop up. Even got a good spawn for Ganon here. Makes it very easy to sit in the corner and spin away. So yeah, that is Ganon down, and Walther has completed the race, assuming he can walk across the bridge. I believe in him. And Walther is finished in first place with an official time at 2:17:34, while Oneup is just finishing off Vitreous for his little dose of disappointment.
And Walter will be joining us shortly. Actually, right now.
Hello there, Walther. GG's.
Having a little bit of trouble hearing Walter, although that doesn't surprise me because Discord has not been very nice to me today.
All right, what about now?
Hey,
That is
there he
excellent.
is. GG's.
Okay, awesome. GG's.
So I'm going to just kick it off with the high point question. How did you feel the moment you walked in and saw Tower of Hera?
Pretty relieved that the myths were required, for sure.
Because that's totally the reason you won this race. Oneup is still, at least on our view, with 15-minute stream delay, he might have done it by now on his end, not climbed Ganon's tower, and that has been a very critical factor.
Yeah, during the race, there's definitely a couple of item pickups that I felt like was really good, but then there was also a couple of ones that I got fairly late that I was like, oh, that kind of burned me as well, so it's kind of hard to tell if I was going to be in a good position or not. But I think when I climbed Ganon's Tower, I was like, I want to say I was 100% sure it had to be progression.
Yeah, it was really interesting on our end. So the biggest deal is, in terms of like a difference, you had the bow very early. Oneup did not go to either bow location for an extremely long time, but Oneup went into Mire very early, so he had the Cane of Samaria.
Yeah.
And at the point you were climbing GT, Oneup had already found the hammer and the ice rod out of Logic and Turtle Rock. And I was like, oh man, that's where the hammer is. You're just going to be climbing GT for the lamp, and that puts so much of this stuff in Logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
then you found the lamp up there, but there was also a Mitts. And it's like, oh, Mitts don't open much. It's just 2 entrances. Wait, we had a connector. Only 1 entrance. But man, if that entrance is Hera, Walther's in a great spot.
Yeah, I was very glad to see that Hera was a crystal. Because I don't think it had anything required in it. It had like the big key for Fiefsum, I think, which ended up being a pendant. And I was also super surprised that I actually got Hammer as Go mode, because that like almost never happens. I was sure that like Pod was going to be a pendant. I would have to find Quake or Boots.
Boots were in the vanilla big key chest in Palace of Darkness. Oneup did eventually locate them.
Yeah, I managed to see it as the stream was catching up.
I don't remember where he found Quake. It exists, but it's obviously not very important. The TR laser bridge spits you out of the Turtle Rock entrance, actually.
Yeah, I figured it was like at that point when I was in Turtle Rock, it had to be that entrance, Ganon's Tower, or like the shop in Village of Outcast. So it wasn't worth checking it.
Yeah, the shop in Village of Outcast was Thieves Town.
Oh, okay.
None of the bonk entrances were anything of interest at all, and we don't know what's behind Super Bomber GT, but it can't be anything too exciting.
Oh yeah, it could have been Super Bomb as well. Yeah, that's fair. Was there more small keys to Pod in Ganon's Tower on the left side?
Yeah. Oneup is at 5 pod small keys, and we still don't know where the 6th one is. He's making his way to Zelda's chest right now, which I think is all of our picks for a great place for it to be.
I think I might have one key he didn't. Wasn't there a pod key in the top of Ganon's Tower? Maybe I was wrong about that.
I have no idea. Maybe there was. I wasn't keeping careful track of the pod key sourcing.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
One of the pod keys you didn't get was in Ice Palace. It was the vanilla big key chest. You didn't have Cane of Samaria when you went in there the first time, so you were not able to get that key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I went into Ice Palace, I was like, because it was so out of the way, and it was very likely a progression was going to be in there, which it was, I suppose, in form of the small key to Desert. So it's like, okay, there's got to be progression here, right? And then I get the small key, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe Desert has to and then it was used
the Turtle Rock big key from in there was pretty important. And yeah, Zelda's chest was the last pod small key we just saw.
Okay. Well,
I really wanted to know what was in that chest, I'm not gonna lie.
It was so interesting. You both made the same decision to steal the key from the boomerang room. You immediately, with some difficulty, but immediately went back and got your bow. Oneup just kind of sat on the key for the entire game.
Yeah, I got kind of tilted in the early game because like all of my dark rooms were terrible. I don't know why. It was very uncharacteristic for me to be dying in dark rooms. Both there and in like Aga Tower as well.
Yeah, you definitely had some of those issues, but even by mid-game, you'd largely cleaned things up. You had a very clean moth fight.
Half magic definitely helps that fight.
I was amazed when I saw him dying because I was like, wow, all those hits counted. That's amazing.
Yeah, I even like missed one shot and like splash damage hit him anyways. Yeah, it was an interesting seed. Kind of weird that you'd have to go into a lot of pendants except for Meyer. Which I guess finding the hammer would be kind of bad and early because then you probably full clear Swamp Palace.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of set Oneup back. Is he very much full cleared Swamp Palace, and it just didn't pay off. There's the last sword in there. You both have tempered, but the sword you have is from Hera Basement, and of course he can't get to Hera.
Mm-hmm.
So the other real kind of story of this seed, it was a story and a non-story, was Aga 1, where the seed was just like screaming Aga 1 in the early game, and then it was just never really a thing.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go to the back as soon as possible, because it definitely felt like it was going to be an Aga seed. So I was like, I thought about Gannis Tower for a while, but I was like, well, the boots are going to be required before the bow, most likely. So we'll wait until we get the boots at the very least. But then when I got like a second bow, it's like, oh, okay. I climb Gannis Tower, but been a logic like forever. It's kind of weird. You get those two small keys so early, and then didn't even end up being anything. Well, not that way at least.
Yeah, like not even within any logical contraption you build, fighting Aga 1 was just completely logically useless this seed, because in order to get everything you needed to do it, you would get everything to work around it too, just because of lamp.
Yeah, and I'm like walking around half of the seed expecting to find boots anytime now, because Aga is probably the way you get the bow.
Yeah, and Oneup has just found the Desert Big Key, and he's making his way to kill Landmalus. The good news for Oneup is this is an absolutely required move. It's going to put him at 6 crystals. The bad news for Oneup is that it's not going to advance him otherwise. He has to make the GT climb. And as soon as he sees those mitts, he's probably going to have a pretty clear idea of where the Tower of Hera is. Unfortunately, it's really likely the next play he makes after killing Landmo is returning the Super Bomb.
Yeah, that makes sense if he's only looking for Hera entrance at this point.
Yeah, I think Oneup is actually full cleared the overworld other than the Super Bomb and GT entrances, and of course we know that that's not where he needs to go because it's the Ice Palace entrance, the only Mitz-locked entrance in this seed.
Yeah, that's pretty wild actually.
Yeah, because you come out of Turtle Rock with a connector, you come out, there's a connector to the Mire region, and you come out of the Hammer Pegs as a connector.
Yeah, I was definitely stressed in this race. Did not feel good for most of it, but I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like some parts felt good, some parts didn't. My execution today definitely did not feel very good, except for maybe getting like the triple kill in without the cane on with the what they call the whisk ropes. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. Other than a couple of the early game flubs I think we've already went over, it felt like your execution was pretty good. You and Oneup routed, it was kind of the crisscross where a lot of the things you did were similar, but specific key things were very different, and it ultimately made the difference and let you get a pretty decisive win. So,
yeah.
Looking ahead to the bracket a bit, your next opponent is going to be Tam216. Do you have any feelings about this upcoming matchup? Okay, you there, Walther?
Hear me now?
I think we're having some sort of a Discord issue.
Yeah, it was being rather finicky with me when we first started the race too, so I'm sure
about
it
now?
is just-
Okay, we're back. I was just asking. You probably answered into the
I
void.
think my mic, I think my mic is acting up a little bit. It does that sometimes. But what I said was that I think Tam was pretty high seated, if I remember correctly. It's gonna be an
The
interesting
7 seed, I believe.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup for sure. It feels like everyone who made it into brackets can beat, like anyone can beat anyone. It feels like so. There's gonna be like no easy matchups for pretty much anyone. So I don't know. Just gonna have to try and do my best and hope that's enough. It's gonna be a fun match.
It's the end of the day. It's all any of us can do. It's definitely, I would agree. This is a tough bracket. Like, there's very few players you look at and say, "Oh yeah, I got this guy. This is no concern." And I think people have just gotten so good at A Link to the Past over our couple of years of Rando that it's hard to just really get those big edges over people, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think like we've already seen a couple of matches in the brackets go a little bit unexpected. Like some of the more high-profile names have already like taken losses, so that just proves the point of like there's gonna be like no easy matchup in the bracket for anyone.
I will say that is a really convenient super bomb return. You just go to the pyramid, leave a portal,
Oh yeah, right.
grab
It
the
was
bomb
right here.
right from the castle, and walk right in.
Yeah, that's for the wild.
So at this point, I think Oneup has to know climbing GT is the answer. And I think at this point, he also has to know he either gets the mitts up there or the mushroom leading the mitts. I don't even think there are any other possibilities left on the table for him. I guess I don't know if he's done Spike Cave, but you know, he's running out of possibilities real fast.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense to skip, like to commit to skip GT at this point for Oneup, I think, because if you skipped it for so long, going up there is probably not going to be a winning play anyways at that point. So just trying to go for some of the other isolated locations, even though they're like more time, words, even though they take longer to get to these, I think it makes a lot of sense.
And you also obviously have the devaluing a GT that comes into play just because, like, you know, it's really likely that in upper GT you're going to find the lamp. I think you know you has to be up there, so that's basically an empty chest from your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I got my gloves in pod, because of how deep in pod they were, it kind of felt like it didn't feel out of the realm of possibility that probably would have been my midst locations, which I think logically they had to be. Yeah, because lamp was up there in GT together with the gloves.
I actually I'm not entirely sure the logic cared what order you got the gloves this seed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that glove was behind the other. The one in pod is obviously super locked, but I don't think just normal gloves actually led to very many things. Obviously, mitts were required for Hera.
Yeah, I think the big thing was like it led to mirror. Not sure exactly if mirror was super required, but it definitely helps with routing. But I surely hope that they wanted you to get the other glove in GT first, because otherwise you would have to climb up to get the mirror or the lamp and then skip that glove chest and then come back up again. But yeah, maybe they were like, so it has to be a different sphere, right?
Yeah, the logic doesn't really necessarily specify what order you're supposed to get things always. Like, so if it's possible to get the gloves in either order, the logic actually, it's just indifferent to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Oneup accidentally mirroring as he just entered the gauntlet. That's a really easy quick swap mistake to make. And it's his second accidental mirror this race. He's got to be feeling a little tilted. It's been a while since the finish. Your last locationing, and it's just a very frustrating situation.
Yeah, that's the classic cross key play. I was definitely afraid of doing that a couple of times in this save.
So you're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you're welcome to say, but I'm pretty much out of questions. So, anything else to particularly add about this seed or this race?
Not that I can think of on top of my head. Thanks for restreaming, of course, and doing the comms and then tracking. And yeah, it was a interesting seed. I went 0-0 last cross keys tourney, which made me kind of disappointed. So it's nice to start off with a win here.
You have in fact already done infinitely better than you did last time.
Exactly. So it can only get worse from here now. I guess yeah.
So the way you look at it, all further wins are gravy.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it.
You're playing with house money now.
Me and Wallkicks usually kick each other out of tournaments, and I think we're in different parts of the brackets. So I guess that means we're gonna probably go to the winner bracket finals, right? So I'm looking forward to that. That's the only logical conclusion I can draw.
I don't know. I'd have to inspect the bracket to see the fastest way you guys can beat losers. You know, we can all get some convergence that way.
We don't need to use any logic here to look into it further. Let's just call it as the winner bracket finals and be happy with that. no, but it's been fun so far. It's going to be interesting to see how the bracket evolves. And yeah, thanks for doing for the comms.
And thanks for racing. It was a pretty exciting one. It was until Hera was found, it was really super up in the air. So it was a pretty exciting race.
Nice. That's always nice to have like close, exciting races in that sense. Well, I'm gonna drop out and let you guys finish this one off. GG's again.
GG's, Walter.
So yeah, with that find, Oneup has his mitts. I think he has enough information to know the mitts are the item he needs, but he's probably not 100% sure, and he's already seen the dot done. He's going to see what else is up here, get his lamp, probably nodding like, yep, that's where that is. Of course that's where that is. He's going to get the other two items gated by Upper GT, or at least the one behind Moldorm 2. This fight isn't really a fight with Tempered Sword. And we'll see what he does when he finds Hera. Given that he's gone this far, I expect him to finish things up. But yeah, he's going to kill Aga 2. Find Hera at the Ice Palace entrance and probably shake his head a lot.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame him for going ahead and finishing the tower since the accidental mirror.
Like, I do think in this situation, like, there's no possible place with his knowledge Hera could be other than behind the mitts. But
I'm pretty sure he's checked everything.
you're pretty rattled at this point. And you know that if you had to reclimb GT, you just forfeit. So you're like, I'm just going to beat it. I probably don't have to, but just whatever. The race is over anyway. Yeah, Oneup missing his mirror spot there. It's really hard to find where to mirror around the pyramid. In most places, the dark and the light world have very similar topography, but in this particular screen, the castle pyramid screen, they're just so different, and it's very easy to mirror bonk yourself. Looks like Oneup's going for Smith Chain? Not entirely sure why he's not going to the Ice Palace entrance, unless we're about to watch a 216 out of 216. Oh, he never came out of the connector for hammer pegs. Okay, that makes perfect sense. This is an equally valid mitts entrance. So I definitely could feel the dissatisfaction with that not being Hera. It looks like he's heading to the TR entrance. I'm pretty sure Oneup came out of that. Definitely just a little bit of... he hasn't dropped here yet. We do know where Thieves Town is. We didn't mark it. It's not the most important thing. Thieves Town is in the hammer-blocked entrance in the Village of Outcast. Now Oneup's headed to Tower of Hera. There'll be some relief for Oneup, I'm sure, when he sees Hera here. For one, it means the seed's almost over. And for two, at least he knows now he lost on a decision not to climb GT and not on a... just making a mistake and missing an easy check. Of course, Oneup showing no respect for Moldorm, not grabbing a fairy. It's like 3.5 hearts. That is more than enough for this loser. And frankly, he's pretty much right.
So I think we just have one more thing to go, and that would be to take down the big pig for 1UP 40.
Looks like 1UP is just running there directly. I don't know if this is faster than fluting to 2. It feels like it's slower, but probably not much. Doesn't really make a huge difference.
Oh, got hit by that bomb right before he went in.
That is strategically making sure you don't have annoying sword beams.
I agree. Sword beams on Ganon is the worst.
They don't really do anything, but you don't like them. We also see 1UP very much employing red mail evasion strats with the fire bats, which is just let them hit you, what does it matter? That was a really good Silver's Ganon. He just locked him on the bottom. I don't actually know if I've seen precisely that sort of pattern before, but either way, that will be a game completion for 1UP. GG's to him. Looks like he is finishing with a time of, waiting for it to tell me, 2:47.42.
Yeah, I think he's going to join us for a comment. There he is. Hey, 1UP, GG's.
GG's. Sorry you all had to sit through all that nonsense.
I mean, I don't think there's any mystery in your mind of exactly what factor was the deciding one.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think sequence breaking those what were actually the mitts in the Dark Maze, I think probably hurt me more than they helped. I don't know if he did the same thing.
Did do the same thing. So the biggest item difference in the early game that probably greatly colored your decisions was you had the Cane of Samaria far before he did. He just said no to Meyer. But he had the bow. He went straight back in the sewers as soon as he stole the key. He actually found the other bow in desert before you had a bow too. So climbing GT was something that was really pointed to him, whereas you had all the Cane stuff to do. And the Cane stuff led you to a lot, but it didn't lead you to the mitts. And by the time you found that hammer, let me guess, you thought, oh, upper GT's just the lamp anyway, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, like with all the stuff that had been lamp locked, like I'm, kind of wondering where the lamp is, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's probably going to be something silly like going up to GT just to get a lamp to put everything in logic. And of course it was up there, but there was other stuff too, so...
It was so crazy too, like as viewers, at the time that he found those mitts, we'd already seen hammer pegs as a connector, we'd seen you come out of Turtle Rock, we saw a connector to Meyer. Mitts were one entrance, and we already knew all the pendants and crystals between you. We're like, man, if Ice Palace isn't Hera, then this whole climb was a waste. 1UP's in the driver's seat. then Ice Palace was Hera, and it's like, oh, that's big.
Yeah, like when I was getting close to the end there, like I was just assuming that I was going to find Hera, and then like the Desert Big Key was going to be in Hera, because that was 6 checks, which was like a ton more checks than anything else I had at that point. And so once I found those boots in Pot, I'm like, oh great, this opens 4 entrances. Hera has to be one of these, right? And that's why I like bailed immediately and went and checked all the boots entrances. Expecting that it was going to lead to Hera. There was going to be 6 checks. One was going to be the Desert Big Key. End of game. And then, like, I found 2 item caves, but not Hera. I'm like, well, that didn't help.
Yeah, we also had a little bit of confusion because we had a Desert Big Key mismarked for about half the race. The Desert Big Key eluded both of you for a very long time. It was Walther's go mode, and it probably would have been your go mode if you climbed GT earlier, because you found it very late as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even though I found the mitts pretty late, like, it's not like those mitts locked the Desert Big Key, and I think I still found that after it had finished anyway, so I'm not even sure that, finding the mitts earlier would have even been enough to swing it.
Yeah, of course, the thing that might have made a difference, Walther comboed a purple chest and the Bombos monolith, whereas that wasn't an option to you, so that might be down your priority chain. It's always hard to say how things would be different if they were different.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about, the purple chest and stuff. And it's kind of funny that you guys mismarked the Desert Big Key, because I mismarked it too at one point. You guys probably saw me flute to 5 and then, check my menu to double check if I had the Desert Big Key, and then I'm like, oh no, I don't have it, because I was getting ready to go and do the Back of Desert. Apparently I'd gotten the Hera Big Key and just misclicked a little there.
Yeah, you guys did have the Hera Big Key for all the incredible good it did that race. The Thieves Town Big Key was in Hera, for what that does too.
Okay, yeah, that's not surprising. I don't think there was a whole lot left besides Hera by the time I went through there.
Yeah, and Hera Basement was the 4th sword. You both ended with Tempered, but it wasn't the same Tempered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because, actually, no, Walther's go mode wasn't the Desert Big. It was the Hammer, but Desert Big was shortly before. And Hammer go mode, obviously that's very helpful. You can't even consider doing 8 of the 10 checks in Swamp.
Yeah, that and all of Thieves Town for this one, because that was hammer locked. The left side of GT, all kinds of good stuff.
And of course, I think you got a pod big key on left or a pod small key on left GT, so the logic expected you to do a whole lot of extra work, but this was definitely a seed that if you weren't so worried about the logic, you could take a couple of shortcuts.
Yeah, for sure. And I know there's a pod small in the ice big key chest, which of course is glove locked, which is why once I found that, I knew those were supposed to be the mitts in Dark Maze, because I was supposed to have a glove before getting that glove. But
that is a good. It's mostly fixated on how hammer locked, and it was a little asymmetry. Walther didn't have Kane when he went into ice the first time, so he didn't get that key, but that key wasn't particularly critical at any point.
Yeah.
But yeah, GG's, it was an interesting race. It didn't swing your way, but it was definitely competitive for a majority of the time. And it looks like your next matchup is going to be against Avidus Neso. It's not a runner I'm familiar with. I don't know if you have any familiarity, and if you do, any thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, I've seen him around a couple times. I'm not sure if I've played him a whole lot. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to where the items end up being. yeah, you can have stuff like happen to me today, and like one runner just goes completely off on some tangent that like someone else hits in go mode or never even finds or something. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll all be looking forward to seeing it, but I think we're probably about to wrap things up. GG's again, Oneup.
Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
yeah, thanks, and GG to Walter as well, and thanks for the restream, everyone.
For sure. Thanks for allowing us to restream you. It was a great race. And don't forget to tune in for some more of the Cross World Key Sanity Tournament. Our very own commentator, Amazing Ambrose, will be racing at 8 p.m. Eastern Time today. So hopefully we get him on a restream as well. Right now we have a race going on between Lin and Dr. Bob Tastic over on CSR3. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over there so you can see how their race finishes up. Once again, on behalf of ZSR, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to having a lot more races with you. Thanks again.